Hi, this is Jackie's Reading Room, and I'm your host, Jackie P. Have you turned some pages today? The real question is, have you turned some physical pages today? Or did you swipe your finger on a screen to do so? Today's debate is paper or e reader. According to a mini survey in the November 2020 issue of Contact, which is the magazine for Costco, 51% of people surveyed. Now, I don't know how many people that is, but we can say that there are quite a few, I would imagine. 51% of people surveyed prefer to read on paper. I'm not surprised, compared to 24% in digital or electronic format and 5% in audio format. We'll come back to the audio format later. So let me ask you this. What about you? What do you prefer and why? I was thinking about my own preferences. And personally, I have always loved paper copies of books, and that is for several reasons. And today, I'd like to give you my top 3 reasons to read books in paper format. Now, you have to think that I am close to my 50s, and for well, for all my youth, as a matter of fact, there was no internet. There were computers, but you didn't read on them. So I really grew up surrounded by physical books. So maybe it is different for different generations. Okay, so let's hear it. Top 3 reasons to read books in paper format. This is very personal. Number 3, it's easy to lend or give a paper copy of a book to someone. As you may be aware, and as you also may be doing, books make great presents. I believe I mentioned that somewhere in one of my other podcasts. I love giving books as presents. It's possibly the thing I love to do the most. And I don't just give, new copies of books that I buy in a bookstore. Sometimes I'll find them, in used bookstores or in my little free library. And so giving or lending a book, somebody says, I'd like to read something like that. And I say, here, I love to recommend books to people as well. And I was also reflecting on board books, right, for babies, such as one book that I really loved to read with my girls, The Very Hungry Caterpillar. I also remember Brown Bear, what do you see? And I still have the rhythm because I used to kind of sing song it to my daughters when they were small. It started young, so for me, giving or lending books, and you can't really do that, can you, with an e-reader? I mean, you could show it to somebody, but and the person could download the same title that you give them on their own e-reader, but it's not the same as putting a paper copy of a book in their hands. Okay, reason number 2 why I prefer to read on paper. Well, you can annotate in pen or pencil, a paper copy. You can highlight some passages or maybe some dialogue that you like in different colors. You can even have an author sign a paper copy of a book. I mean, I don't think that you must have ever seen someone arrive with their Kindle and say, "Please sign the inside cover of my Kindle," to whoever is present at, I don't know, a book show, or that wouldn't work so well. Back in 2020, that was just before we were sent home, when the heart of the pandemic hit. I had the Canadian author Genevieve Graham come to give a presentation to my students. And we had some books that she wrote on sale. And at the end of the presentation, she sat at the table, and then she signed the copies. At that time, her book, The Forgotten Home Child, had just come out. So many students bought that. I also bought Promises to Keep, her historical novel that takes place in um, Acadia, right? So it's an experience, and and then you come home and you have the book with the author's signature in it. It's yeah, it's something special that you cannot replicate, I don't think, with any reader. And my number one reason for enjoying reading on paper is that you can display physical books on shelves. You can look at them. You can turn the pages and hear the sound the pages make. You can smell them, right? New books, old books. I don't know. I must be a nerd, but I love to smell. I love to smell books. So you can see that all your senses are kind of um, tapped into when you have a physical book in your hands. For me, nothing beats walking down an aisle of books especially in a new bookstore that I'm discovering, or a library I've never visited. And I also love to go to my own bookshelves. I have a few in my house, and sometimes I'll just go there to to say, "Oh yeah, I think I have that novel. I heard about the author. The author's coming up with a new book." Whatever. For me, the physical presence of books is just such a comfort, and so I just love having them around. Sometimes I think I would like to spend a couple months in a little uh, you know trailer, or a little van where you can sleep in. But I keep looking at that, thinking, okay, I could not have a lot of books in there. What would I do? That's when maybe my Kobo. I have a Kobo e-reader, might prove useful. I do enjoy it once in a while. I do use it. I will purchase not many books, but some there, and it's easier sometimes to get some kind of hard to find books on your device. So you know that I love to read from past podcasts. I love to read noir, so Scandinavian noir novels, and sometimes I just have a hard time finding them in libraries and in bookstores here. I'm in the Montreal area. Even books from, let's say, Australian authors. So sometimes actually getting the uh, digital copy uh, can help out. But when I read at night, I want to have a break from screens before I go to bed. I cannot have a screen. Now, the e-reader is really made for reading, so it doesn't have like a glow, like a another device, like a tablet, right? Or a phone. So at least it's a bit better. But for me, like when I pick up my book and I sit in my sofa, there's something about it, about it's the relaxation comes. Listen, I'm going to put in the blurb on the podcast the link to this very interesting article from Scientific American. It was published in 2013, but I believe that it's definitely still accurate. It's called "The Reading Brain in the Digital Age," and it talks about reading on paper versus on a screen. And I want to give you a quote from it that goes like this: "Compared with paper, screens may also drain more of our mental resources while we are reading, and make it a little harder to remember what we read when we are done." So, one other good reason to read on paper. And one of the other quotes that I enjoyed was, because the text will talk about the brain and how the brain responds. You may be aware that, and I quote, "We are not born with brain circuits dedicated to reading." You know that writing is actually a fairly recent invention, and the brain has to construct, meaning from understanding letters, and it's definitely not the same when you read in a paper copy. You have the book open, you have the two pages left and right. You can know how many pages you've read already, how many pages are left to read. um, how far you're at. They call it in the text, mapping the journey, right? When you have your e-reader, you have the page there, and you don't really know how many you went through, how many are left, unless you check the number of pages, the total number of pages before you start. And it's just easier to flip through, right? To go to a previous page. Right now, I started reading this young adult, or I would say even children's book called Pax. It's written by Sarah Pennypacker, and I see on the cover that it was a finalist for the National Book Award. I'm reading that because my daughter is reading it. She's in grade 6, and she's reading that now. And so I thought I would accompany her reading this. And I love to look at the spine. And I can see right now that I've only read like just a little bit. I'm only on page 30, and there are about, I don't know, 200 something, yeah, 260 pages. And there are illustrations. I love that I can compare the size of my book, the original English version, with my daughter's French translation. So it's a different feeling, but really, go to that article, because it's really fascinating to understand. And there are studies that were done on that, to understand how our brain uh, 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 remembers the information from a paper text compared to a digital text. And it's not just me. I was talking about generations. Even in the text, they talked about some millennials that were surveyed, and they still prefer to read an actual paper book. I just asked my daughter, who's 15. Same here. Well, but then she was raised with lots of paper books in the house along with her sister. So listen, to me, it really doesn't matter. Some people also enjoy reading on an e-reader because they can increase the size of the font, and that really can make reading more accessible to many people. And that's awesome. The bottom line is really just to turn some pages a bit every day, so that you can be entertained, so that you can learn and absorb, the written word. So hopefully that inspired you to go turn some paper pages, or and some digital pages. And that's really my goal when I do this. Enjoy. If you liked it, you can go back to the former podcasts. This was number 13. um, I was happy to be with you today, and I will see you next week. Take care.